All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going deep into the engine room of modern banking. We're going to uncover this massive technological shift that's happening as we speak. We're talking about moving from a system that was literally built back in the 1960s to something that's actually fit for today's digital world. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start by digging up a hidden problem in banking, then introduce the tech that might just solve it. After that, we'll explore 3 huge opportunities this opens up, look at the big decisions banks are wrestling with, and wrap up with a really crucial question: who's actually in control?
So let's dive right into our first section. To really get why this change is such a big deal, we have to uncover a secret that's kind of hiding in plain sight, right there on your phone. You know, we all use these super slick, futuristic banking apps, right? Tapping, swiping, it all feels so instant and modern. But that beautiful interface? It's often just a mask. A pretty digital face painted on top of a system that is, well, very old.
And here it is. Here's the secret. The majority of the global banking system, it still runs on COBOL. That's a programming language from the 1960s. So while you're getting that cool real-time notification, your app is basically just sending a message back to a program that's been around for decades. I mean, it works, and it's compliant, but it is the absolute definition of legacy tech.
So, that begs the question, right? How in the world do you upgrade a system that's this old, this critical, without, breaking the entire global economy? Well, this is where a completely new kind of digital plumbing comes into play.
Think about it like this. The old model, it's like a bookstore that just happens to have a website. It's a simple front end for a really old process. The future model, though, is more like Amazon, a system that's digital from the ground up, with modern databases and tokenized assets. And blockchain? That's the technology that makes this huge leap possible.
Okay, so what does this all mean in the real world? What can banks actually build with this new digital plumbing? This isn't just theory anymore. Let's look at 3 total game changers that are already being worked on today.
First up, tokenized deposits. And let's be super clear here. This is not some new speculative crypto. We're talking about real money, dollars, euros, whatever, sitting in a regulated bank account, but represented as a one-to-one digital token on a blockchain. And the big players like JP Morgan and Citi, they're already doing this.
So, why do this? Well, it all boils down to 2 things: speed and efficiency. Instead of taking days for a payment to settle, it can happen in minutes. That frees up huge amounts of capital that would otherwise be just stuck in transit. It's basically making money move at the speed of the internet. All right, opportunity number 2 is a complete overhaul of how we settle trades. Right now, if you buy a stock, it actually takes 2 whole days to officially clear. They call it T+2. It's wildly inefficient. But companies like Matter Labs are now working with banks to use distributed ledgers to change all that.
The impact of this is it's enormous. When settlement happens almost instantly, money and assets don't get locked up for days on end. What does that mean? It means less risk, way better use of capital, and a financial system that's just fundamentally more liquid and responsive.
And the third big one is something called collateral mobility. Now, in simple terms, this is all about making big, important assets, like stocks or bonds, that are used as collateral move just as easily as digital money. The DTCC, which is a core piece of the U.S. financial plumbing, is already running pilots on this.
For a bank, this is like a secret weapon. When your assets are this mobile and programmable, you don't have to keep as much capital sitting on the sidelines. You can tap into liquidity from anywhere in the world, compete way more aggressively, and just run a much leaner, more efficient operation. Okay, so the potential here is obviously huge. But to get from here to there, banks have some really fundamental choices to make about the technology they're going to use and the path they're going to take.
The first, and maybe the biggest decision, is the network. Do you build on a private, permissioned blockchain that you control? That's kind of been the default choice for a while. Or do you build on an open, public blockchain like Ethereum or Solana? The trend is really starting to shift towards public chains. And why? Well, because they're like digital Legos. Anyone can build new products that just snap together, and that open innovation creates a much richer ecosystem.
So when you boil it all down, a bank's whole strategy comes down to a few key trade-offs. First, the network, open and public, or closed and private. Second, decentralization. Are you going for the fortress-like security of something like Ethereum, or the raw, blistering speed of Solana? And third, and this is a big one, how do you handle privacy on a public network?
So how do you solve for privacy? Well, this is where some seriously cool cryptography comes into play. It's called zero-knowledge proofs, or ZKPs.
It basically lets a bank verify information, like proving you're over 21, without ever having to see the sensitive data itself, like your actual birth date. It's kind of a way to get the best of both worlds, the security and compliance of a private system with the raw innovation of a public one.
And that brings us to our last section, which is, honestly, it might be the most important piece of this whole puzzle. If all these valuable assets are now digital tokens, who is actually responsible for keeping them safe?
Yeah, this is the multi-trillion-dollar question: custody. Securing digital assets is an incredibly specialized skill, and instead of trying to build all that expertise from scratch, what we're seeing is that most banks are choosing to partner with expert firms that already have all the infrastructure and the security figured out.
And you better believe that choosing a partner is an incredibly intense process. Banks run through a super strict checklist that covers everything from having the right regulatory licenses to their technical security posture. We're talking advanced encryption, all the way down to their day-to-day operational practices, all proven by regular, tough audits.
So really, it all comes down to this spectrum of control, and it's all about the wallets. On one end, you've got custodial wallets, where a trusted third party holds the keys. That's what most big institutions need. On the other end is self-custody, where the user holds their own keys, giving them total control. Banks need to be able to serve clients all across this spectrum.
So, look, here's the bottom line. The tokenization of finance, it's not some sci-fi concept anymore. It's an active, strategic overhaul of the global financial system that is happening right now. The foundations are being laid as we speak. And for every bank, for every financial institution, the question is no longer if this change is coming. The real question is, will they be an architect of this new system or a relic of the old one?